top Russian lawmaker claims the sole purpose of the attack is to secure peace, saying Russia has never been an enemy. Let's bring in senior investigative reporter Aaron Katursky in Ukraine, foreign correspondent James Longman in Moscow, and White House correspondent Mary Alice Parks here in Washington, D.C. for more. Aaron, what are you seeing there in Ukraine?
Well, we kept hearing those air raid sirens, as Ian referenced, and we've heard the reports of explosions that mainly seem to target strategic sites, airfields and airports and other military installations. The Ukrainian president's office has confirmed 40 casualties and the downing of a Ukrainian military plane carrying at least 15, maybe 17 people. But that's just the early numbers. This is going to be very bloody if the early indications are what's ahead here. And while there is still relative calm on the street, here in Lviv, we've seen long lines at ATMs as people want to withdraw money or go to pharmacies to secure medicine, fill up water jugs. They are prepared for potentially some very dark days ahead.
And James, how does this attack compare to what we have seen from Russia in the past? Is this what was expected from Putin's playbook?
I don't think many people here in Russia really thought he would do this, although in hindsight, we have been tiptoeing towards this for years, all the way back in 2008, where Russia annexed those areas of Georgia, moved in order to secure them, moved the military in order to secure them because they had been declared independent. 2014 in Crimea, again, passing the same law that was passed this time round in order to allow the Russian military to enter a foreign country. And his foreign policy as well. You know, a lot of people in the United States, for instance, will be wondering, well, what's this got to do with me? Well, meddling in elections is part of his playbook, because what it does is undermine the international community's ability to go up against him, supporting ultra-nationalist movements across Europe, undermining democracy, supporting dictatorships, setting up basically an enormous disinformation machine here in Russia in order to sow discord around the world. All of these things are part of Vladimir Putin's plan to undermine opposition in order to fulfill his objectives. And you've got to wonder, is the objective to rebuild a Russian empire? Dan?
And Mary Alice, President Biden is meeting virtually with G7 leaders right now. What do we know about who is in that meeting and what's being discussed?
Well, the White House last night said that they were discussing further consequences on Russia. They've been trying to respond as a united group, the NATO allies, the G7 allies. But of course, they're going to be really tested right now. Their credibility is on the line. President Biden has been saying for months that if Putin were to act like this, invade like this, that there would be severe, swift, costly punishments. The world now is waiting to see if that's true. Obviously, the White House was facing a lot of pressure to start releasing sanctions early. They didn't. They said they thought that sanctions would be a deterrent or were best used as a potential deterrent. Obviously, they did not deter Putin from this, what looks like sort of this worst case scenario. And now the pressure is really on the G7 to live up to what they've been saying. They've been very cagey and vague about what some of these final rounds of sanctions could look like. But some of the things we know they've been discussing is sanctioning Putin himself and maybe removing Russia and Russia's ability to operate on some international banking systems altogether. But when we are looking at images like this, like we saw overnight, obviously everyone wondering what else besides sanctions should the world have been considering.
And Aaron, we've seen images of heavy traffic as people are trying to flee Kyiv. Where will they go, and what do we know about how many Americans may be among those people trying to leave?
Well, they could potentially be heading west toward Lviv and maybe even west still toward the Polish border. And when they get there, they may see members of the 82nd Airborne Division. U.S. troops were deployed from elsewhere in Europe to Poland at first as a measure of reassurance for a NATO ally that the U.S. was serious about its commitment to a shared defense. But now those members of the 82nd Airborne have been pushed to border checkpoints to help with the increase in traffic. The Ukrainian airspace is shut down, so there is no flight out of this country. The only way to really get out would be by car, and we've seen those heavy traffic jams coming from Kyiv. The Russians keep saying they are not intending to hit civilians, that their airstrikes are only meant for military targets. That is of little reassurance to people stuck in those traffic jams, Diane.
Well, and James, NATO, the European Union, the UN, they're all pleading with Russia to stop this invasion. Does Putin care what the international community thinks at this point?
Doesn't look like it. I mean, I think he cares about what his own people think, because this is a regime that relies on the appearance of democracy to function. Already we've had sort of the rumblings of protest against this here in Russia from a small kind of cultural elite. Actors and presenters are putting together an open letter saying they're not happy about this. On Instagram, a number of high-profile people have shared a little black box to show that they don't believe this is the right thing, but he'll really care about the majority outside of the big cities like Moscow and St. Petersburg, and what they think. And so far, there seems to be support, at least if you believe what the government is saying. 73% of Russians support this incursion. But it is because the messaging has been not an offensive. This is not an offensive invasion. This is a defensive, protective measure to help people who are facing genocide. He's used that word, denazification. All these messages are meant to trying to convince Russians that this is a necessary move to save people's lives. And the messaging is so heavily controlled. They're so worried about it, in fact, that the watchdog here, we would call this censorship, has actually put out a message saying that all Russian media outlets must only use what they're calling official Russian sources to report on this story. And if they don't, they're fined something like $80,000. So they're very, very careful about how Russians understand what's going on here. And I think you get the sense that they want this to be quick, because they know that Russian people will be sad and upset if they see a long, drawn-out conflict, which means their men and women are dying and being brought back in body bags. So there's a sense that because he wants to keep them on side, this might not be that long, but obviously we have no idea.
All right, Aaron Katursky, James Longman, and Mary Alice Parks, we appreciate it. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.